Hello and welcome to Villain Squad. It's a podcast that we do sometimes, but it's part of the Creature Club podcast network, for lack of a better term. I'm Daniel.
Oh, I am.
Come on, man. Come on, man. I was about to bring you in. What are you doing? I'm Daniel. I'm Daniel, and the person who won't stop interrupting me is Mikey.
Hi. Sorry, I don't want. I'm too afraid to say something now.
No, it's fine. We're done the intro.
I'm Mikey. We've done one Villain Squad before. We did General Winter.
That
was a holiday special that we did. We decided to do another one because, Tim's not around. He's still not around. And he doesn't have a microphone, so he can't record with us. So we're like, let's just do the weird stuff. Let's get freaky with Creature Club.
Yeah, he's going to come back. The Creature Club house is going to be a mess. He's going to be really upset. But,
he's like, oh, the liquor cabinet will be open. The fine china will be smashed.
We drank all the vodka and just replaced it with water because we thought he wouldn't notice.
Yeah, but he notices. He always notices that.
I mean, it's very easy to notice. You just have to try to drink some vodka.
Yeah. So... So what? That's true. So what we're gonna do is this time we're actually going to probably come up with a villain squad as we do the episode, and you guys are gonna join us while we do it. It's not live, so you can't actually help us. You can't put in the comment and help us. But so Daniel, how do you think we should do this? How do you think we should start with with making our Villain Squad 2?
I think we should start by looking at what we did in the last episode and trying to do something different.
Yeah.
So I think that instrumental to the Villain Squad brand, for lack of a better term, is that it is there is a squadron, right? There has to be a group, because as we discussed in the last episode, so we'll do this briefly just because people might have listened to that one. What we like to do is sort of, like in the traditional tropes of some anime cartoons, or in a lot of anime, now that I think about it, but also more kind of relevantly to us in Metal Gear Solid. Traditionally, there's a sort of a colorful cast of villains you take on.
Yeah.
And they kind of each represent different aspects of maybe some message or theme. And that idea is just kind of really cool and iconic, so we like to build kind of a pantheon of villains almost for you to face off against.
They all have their separate way of trying to kill you, and they're just as colorful as the heroes, and so for them, they're just as colorful as the heroes for your heroes to face off against. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to make like a colorful cast, different abilities for each one, and that's what we're going with. For a lot of action movies do that, like Metal Gear Solid, anime, shonen anime to be precise, like video games in general. A lot of them do it.
Yep, Titanfall 2 did it.
Yep. Got a bunch of them, like a lot of beat 'em up games, like hack and slash games, like Devil May Cry and stuff like that. Those kind of games.
Yeah,
do it.
Oh yeah, those do it a lot. I only felt like calling out Titanfall 2 because playing that campaign and finding out that even though it's this really weird sci-fi shooter, they do this thing where they give you this colorful cast of villains, and each villain gets their own signature cutscene.
Okay.
It literally feels like you're playing like an 80s movie.
Yeah, it's weird. Isn't Titanfall 2 good? It kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it?
It kind of just the first one was good, but a little small and a little underwhelming. But the second one's just ace. It's just unbelievable, and it just sort of snuck up on me, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot because it's free if you have Origin access, and so I had that for a while, and I tried it out, and I was just I had so much fun. It was the most fun I had with a shooting game since Call of Duty 4, which I played back when I was 16, maybe younger.
Baby.
I don't even know when that game came out. Okay, but here's my suggestion. So we are making it up on the fly, but I've come up with a cool suggestion.
Okay.
So the first thing we did was General Winter. And so that was very much, we built a villain squad around a villain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So instead of doing that, so instead of having kind of this hierarchical power structure, what if we built a villain that was and I'm going to use a reference here that a friend of the podcast, Robert Cole, is going to love because he did it in our first ever campaign. What if we built the Star Wolf to the party's Star Fox?
So kind of like a complete opposite rival party to your adventurers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. For those of you not familiar with the Star Fox universe, and I'm very sorry for excluding you for this long because you are very reasonable to not be acquainted. What I mean is the idea of the... Actually, you know what a more approachable reference is? The Gary Oak to the Ash Ketchum.
Yep.
It's the exact same idea. that someone else is just, they're just better than you, they're cooler than you, they always get there first. But like more importantly, in the context of those stories, and also in the context of Dungeons and Dragons, they lack that kind of heroic spark that the party or the main character wield, that means that they can solve problems that other people can't.
Yeah.
You know.
So, do you want to make these guys rivals, but still on the side of good, or do you want to make them the baddies?
I think you make them rivals of the party, but I think you establish that they are not. So this is the thing, right? Like, I think what I want to do baseline is I want to say, okay, these guys are sort of set up as their rivals. Maybe they both take the same contract, right? And they have to both try to kill the owlbear first or something like that.
Yeah.
So initially they're just your competition, but I like the idea that this adventuring party, this rival party, can we just call them Starwolf, just as a sort of shorthand for now?
Yeah.
Oh, until we come up with a cool name for them. Just so to save ourselves some time, so that when we say adventuring party, people aren't like, wait, which one? I think that Starwolf are like a little less like morally upstanding than the party, right? They're a little shiftier.
Yeah.
They're like the Blackwood Company to the party's Fighters Guild, which is a fun Oblivion reference for you
Nice
Oblivion people. Thank you. You know, so like they don't have to be bad people. They just aren't as good people, you know?
Yeah, this is handy now because if we're gonna just do it, we can just. I have my player's handbook with me right now. I think it's the first time I'm ever going to use a player's handbook in a Creature Club production, because obviously with this idea, you would kind of want to make it tailored to your player characters. Really, you want to make like a fighter to be against your fighter? Do you want to make certain guys to be up against your players? So we can just go through the classes and say, let's make a rival guy of this class, you know, or that might be
that's a really cool way of doing that. I didn't think of that, but that makes a lot of sense. That'll give us a really great opportunity to really just like dive into that player's handbook in a way that we haven't before, and also give me an opportunity to learn how a lot of the player classes work, because you know.
Yeah.
Anyway. So shall we just jump right in?
Let's jump right in. Yeah, let's do this one by one. Let's go to the classes. I was
going to say, I think we'll ignore the races a little. I mean, we can use them as flavoring, right?
Yeah.
Well, but I don't think we have to say, if your party has an elf, the opposite is a dwarf. Like, that's, come on.
Yeah. So the first class in the player's handbook is the barbarian.
I don't think we have to go into detail as to how each class works.
Yeah.
We could maybe touch on each of the subclasses to talk about how they might be opposed.
But basically, like to be real quick, a barbarian's kind of like a fighter, but a bit more.
They're driven more by instinct and emotion than they are by training and discipline.
Exactly.
Would be how I would always describe it. Obviously, the sort of signature ability of the barbarian is rage, is just called, which is just that they kind of enter like a battle fury, where they're very difficult to keep, very difficult to put down, and they deal a lot more extra damage, which is cool.
And actually, just right there, a barbarian character would be very good to go up against a fighter character, actually. It's kind of like, opposing ideologies. Almost a little bit, if you think about it that way.
The barbarian is cool because the barbarian is effective. So the barbarian can be the opposite to the fighter.
Yeah.
But the barbarian is also a great opposite to the paladin.
Oh yeah.
So in comparison to obviously the paladin's rules and heavy armor, barbarians are basically naked and like just fight based on like might makes right a lot of the time.
Yeah, if you don't make your barbarian with just a loincloth on, then you're not playing a barbarian, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so like obviously, that's the thing, right? Like Conan the Barbarian is kind of the inspirational barbarian, the sort of archetypal anyway,
typical.
It's a barbarian. God help me. But it's so like that's the idea that you're sort of you're kind of comfortable in the wild. You don't have a lot of time for civilization. You don't necessarily need armor to keep yourself safe. You tend to prefer generally big weapons, although that's not a rule. That's just kind of like how a lot of people play it. So the cool thing about the Berserker in the Player's Handbook is that there is that in my opinion the Path of the Berserker is such a great like rival ability set, I guess. Because of the fact that the Path of the Berserker is basically the idea that you are the best at getting angry.
Yeah.
But the kind of benefit of that is that it's very it's clearly inspired by the idea that like you are going kind of deeper and deeper into this like bloodlust frenzy that drives you in combat.
Yep.
Like this this like this desire to destroy, which is exactly the kind of motivation that could lead someone to becoming less and less morally upstanding, and more just kind of descending into this bestial state. So I think if we wanted to say they're just rivals, then we definitely just go Path of the Berserker. I think if we wanted to sort of play up the idea that maybe they are turning somehow and they're kind of turning against the party as a result, I think it would be really cool to incorporate elements of sort of like demonic elements into their fury.
Okay.
Like sort of that they develop maybe or actually, sorry, let's save demons because we might want to use them a lot. Rather than demons, I think a really good one would be shapeshifters or lycanthropes. So like that a barbarian is kind of part wolf man now or whatever. Like they're a werewolf or they're a were tiger or a were boar or a were bear or a were rat or whatever kind of were thing they are. But like the idea that like them descending down this kind of path of fury has like coincided or brought on, or the change has brought on this other change, like they're linked in some way, that like they're kind of becoming more berserk and bestial, and they are literally transforming into an animal.
And that'll be a fun like a werewolf or whatever encounter, being like one of your rivals just turned into one of them. You're like, oh no, and then you get to fight them, but like your players might want to kill the guy, or they might be like, no, actually he's not that bad, let's try and save him somehow, but you can do whatever you want.
That's the cool thing is like if your party are very conscientious, their fights with the rival adventuring party might be non-lethal. They might like be very clear about the fact that they don't want to kill these people.
Yeah, and what's cool with that is if they are non-lethal for like the entire time, then eventually it turns into kind of a friendly rivalry, and then you can have them almost help you in the end when you're fighting the big bad. Maybe not, of course, not on the map and fighting the big bad, but they're like, we're going to take care of these guys while you fight them. Don't worry, we're helping you out, kind of thing. That might be a bit of fun. I wouldn't really go past the Totem Warrior for a NPC because it's very player character-ish, Do you get me?
It is, yeah. It's the only thing I can think about it is that if I had the right kind of party, it might be good because, so for example, if I had a party that had maybe a paladin, a cleric, or maybe just a paladin and no other people with like strong kind of ties in the spiritual realm, the Path of the Totem Warrior does kind of have that sort of old faith element to it, right? Like the druid, and like how the ranger can tap into nature magic, that idea that there are like powers in the world older than the gods, or at least less exact.
Yeah.
And maybe if your paladin is particularly dogmatic, someone who draws power from something else, and is able to stand toe to toe against the paladin, could be a really cool rival, right? Like you have your gods and I have mine, but they're just like, other than that, they're very different people.
Okay, then you can use it with that, I guess.
Yeah, but that's the only thing. I do agree generally. I think you're absolutely right to say it is kind of player character, because it's not like, I think Path of the Berserker is a much better example of like something cool for like a slightly suspect person to have.
Yeah, Barbarian, maybe go Path Berserker, have them go with that one, and maybe pit them up against your paladin or fighter, or maybe Barbarian. Maybe you have a Barbarian who's a totem warrior and who's kind of a bit more spiritual, and he's a berserker who's just like kind of opposite,
Or if you're gonna if you're one of your party members is a totem warrior, have someone else have a different totem.
Yeah,
that could be cool.
Yeah,
what might be fun there is giving them a totem that isn't in the player's handbook. So the only three you have here is bear, eagle, and wolf. So what if someone's like the totem of the boar, right? And they're all into like charging people and getting bloody and like just having like a really like raw fight. Maybe they don't even use weapons.
Let's move on then. Bard. This one, Bard speaks for himself. Really, you can. I like to make my bards kind of like the face or the voice of a party. Kind of have him be the one that's like, who's like the Gary Oak, who's just always like telling you off and like saying "smell you later" when they when they run off. You know?
That is perfect.
Yeah, you know.
Oh my god, I never realized that Gary Oak has so much in common with a bard.
Yeah.
He literally constantly uses like vicious mockery on Ash.
That's
like
true,
every time
yeah.
they meet each other. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm a lot of the universe is revealing itself to me and I'm not taking too well to it. No, that's literally perfect. Yeah, if your rival party has a bard, it's because the bard is the face.
Yeah.
Right? Like the bard's not necessarily the smartest face, and in fact that could be something you use to the advantage of making the rival party make bad decisions because the person in charge isn't that smart. But they are good at talking. They're a natural leader. They're a great storyteller.
And then what's perfect is with Bard is you can do a lot with it where you don't need you don't need all this stuff. All you gotta do with your Bard is just have him go like, oh, how many songs have you written now? How many plays have you put on? Oh, I have one in the theater just up the road now, and then do you want to go see it? Here's the tickets for free. And just like have him already written so many plays and stories and songs, because your player characters probably won't do that. They're off doing adventuring stuff.
Oh,
And
that's
just
such a good point.
having your rival bard do that, everyone just likes him better, and you'll make your player's bard be all like, I hate this guy. I really hate this guy. So just like do something like that would be a lot of fun with it. I think, you know.
I think that's such a good idea. I really like that. I like that idea that that's. See, there's actually two cool things to that, right? Like, first of all, it upsets the players, which is the point. The rival party are supposed to be like frustrating for the players to deal with.
Yeah.
I don't think I would even emphasize like how successful they are. I think I would just emphasize the fact that they do it at all.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that's so easy for like especially like party members who are bards, them to forget, like, oh, you're supposed to be like a storyteller, like that's your whole thing, like you make plays or you make music, the reason you're probably on this adventure is because you want to make it into an interesting story you can tell other people.
Yeah.
And so like as soon as like the first time the rival bard goes, oh yeah, our last adventure I turned it into this like this really successful story, and then what I would do is every time they are in a tavern I would mention how that someone is singing that song.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even have to be like, oh, they did loads of songs. It can just be like they made one song that was about like that one time they went off and they fought like a war band of orcs, and it's just a banger. It's just a banger, and it's like it's in every tavern,
Yeah.
and like they can't escape it. Like
Every tavern, and like by the fifth tavern, he's like, "That's it, we gotta find this party," or "That's it, I'm writing a song," and then just like, then he writes a song, and then he just there you go, just excellent RPing for your bard. And what's great about that is that now you don't really need to talk about this stuff here. Like, you don't need to actually write up a mechanics of a bard. I feel like that's really all you gotta do.
yeah,
With a bard rival,
I actually think you're absolutely right. In terms of bard colleges, the two in the player's handbook aren't great for a sort of a rival as much. Although the College of Lore is kind of handy if nobody, especially if your party doesn't have a bard of the College of Lore, because the College of Lore is all about secrets. So you could have a cool moment where the party need information but they can't find it, but they realize that maybe this rival bard might know the information.
Yeah.
And then they have to both like kind of decide whether it's worth decide whether they can get over their dislike of this character to talk to them, which is actually like a lot of fun in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't rub it in too much. You don't want your players to actually get upset. You just want to make it kind of funny.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that, like, when they maybe do go, all right, look, this is far too important for us to be thinking about petty grudges, we should talk to this bard, and they go and do it. I like the idea that then they get maybe a fun side quest from the rival party, and maybe some of the rival party come along and they get like maybe another side to this party. Like, you still don't like them, but you can see that they're competent, right? Like, you can understand why they're going on adventures as well. Like, they're not just around to piss you off.
Yeah,
They're pretty
exactly.
like,
yeah.
maybe like, like the cleric or the paladin goes along and they can like heal the party, the normal party. Like the Star Wolf cleric goes along with the normal party and then can heal some of them as they get injured. And they're like, that's such a really simple mechanical way to get your players to appreciate someone, just healing them. So that could be kind of cool. Or literally they just give the bard can be a douchebag and be like, no, you got to pay me like 1 billion gold or whatever, like
Yeah.
you know, just like be completely unreasonable. But that's very much, you know, that's very much based on how you feel the party's relationship is. But I think there could be a lot of fun there with sort of like, especially because it's the College of Lore, right? You could have a thing where like they're like, yeah, I know I can give you that information, but I'm more interested in this other information that you didn't know because, you know, I'm like a lore master kind of thing.
Yeah.
And don't rub it in too much that they're better than the party, because they're just as good as the party. They just specialize differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're like, well, I know there's a whatever, like a magic harp in this dungeon, and I want it because I'm a bard. And if you go get it, I will tell you the information you want.
Back to your point about not rubbing it in. I played with many different kinds of players, but I know pretty much all of my players at one point would get so frustrated that they would kill these guys. So like if you rub it in too much that they're better than and make it frustrating for the players, then they will just go out. That's it. I kill them. That's it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think what I'd emphasize that not necessarily that they're better than the party, just that maybe they've got lucky once or twice and been better paid.
Yeah.
Right? So like they're only as good as you, but they have like whatever, an extra couple of 100 gold to their name, and that means that like they can spread their, you know, stories more easily, and like when they go to town they go to the fancier inn or whatever, or like maybe they've got friends in high places, so like they get to stay with nobles or whatever. But like, you know, it's not like they're better than you, it's just that they're like luckier than you, for lack of a better term, and like, you know, you haven't done anything wrong, it's just that they've been lucky. I think I'd kind of try to make that point clear. There's the College of Valor bard, who's a kind of a sort of like, they use the word skald, which I think is a Norse term for kind of a storyteller, warrior type. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me because I'm a dummy. But I don't think there's much you can do with the College of Valor aside from if you
what we already said, I think. Actually,
yeah, I was gonna say I don't think there's anything different you can do with them. The only thing I can think is that a bard of the College of Valor is kind of a they feel like sort of they feel like they might be a nice opposition to, I don't know, a paladin maybe. But honestly, I think College of Lore is a better choice for your rival, because they're you know, a little more likely to know secrets and things like that, which is kind of cool because it means there's a good reason for the party to try and interact with this group.
Yeah, let's move on then to next class.
Cleric. It's the cleric. It's the prime healer boy. Or girl. I apologize.
Prime healer person.
Or yes, exactly. So yes, the cleric is someone who is very good at casting divine magic. They are basically sort of a chosen emissary to a god, and they get to use cool divine magic to do with healing people and damaging the undead, and and they also get to wear armor and use weapons and use shields. They get a bunch of stuff. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're pretty good class. What I'm thinking with this is maybe you like, because the clerics, I don't really see that they can obviously be, but I don't see them being as like annoying and rival-y. Sorry, that's not really a word.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
But I do like the idea of maybe you guys were acolytes in the same temple, and this guy was always like one step ahead of you kind of thing, or he was always like the head cleric or something, his first choice of like, you know, in the temple or something, you know. But that's kind of all I'm really thinking about, you know. Kind of the star student kind of thing, I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. The thing I was gonna suggest is, first of all, you can do the same thing as the College of Lore bard. Jeez, my head is just falling off today. Where there is one of the big decisions that the cleric makes about their class is their domain, which is sort of a really important thing. It's kind of like, you know, like when you pick a domain, you kind of say like, you know, this is the style of god that I worship, or maybe it's just the ideals that I follow, because you can have a cleric that's kind of like that follows an ideal rather than a god, although it's not mentioned here, but I always give it as an option to my party.
Yeah.
So it says one of the domains, one of the first domains, in fact, is the knowledge domain, which is that you are a servant of a god of knowledge, or you sort of follow the ideal of knowledge, and as a result, like the College of Lore bard, you have access to sort of secret and hidden lore, and you know things that other people don't, and you can call upon, you know, this old kind of, you know, you can call upon like, you know, arcane libraries, or not arcane, divine libraries, like of insight, and use them to learn new information. So like all that stuff would be another great way to say, like, how the party might want to interact with the rivals, with the Star Fox, with Star Wolf. Oh my god, with Star Wolf. So like, and actually that could be kind of cool if you said that Star Wolf has a knowledge cleric, and that knowledge cleric is how they keep getting good opportunities because they keep knowing about them ahead of time, or they keep knowing secrets that help them out.
Yeah.
That could be kind of cool.
I'm also thinking, a lot of players, not like all players, I don't want to generalize, but a bunch of players can be kind of assholes sometimes and kind of like to goof off, and they tend to kind of play the goofy asshole-ish characters. So if you just have a regular cleric who's just kind of a nice guy, that's enough opposition, like.
That's true, yeah. Depending on the party you're running for, literally a very well-meaning cleric could be a rival.
Yeah,
just someone who tells them off for being jackasses.
Exactly.
But rather than assume the worst of our party, as fun as that is, the other suggestion I was going to make is there is the trickery domain.
Yeah.
So this is obviously gods like Loki, who I suppose in and out of the Marvel universe is kind of this trickster god who likes to play jokes on people and set them up for failure and things like that. And so that's very much the style of the trickery domain cleric, that they basically like making fools of people and pulling fast ones and pranks and stuff like that. A trickery domain cleric could be cool if your rival party is sort of like they like to pull heists. That could be fun.
Yeah.
But a trickery cleric is a great example of somebody who will literally wind the party up for the hell of it, although actually it's because it's their divine calling.
Yeah. It's so weird, actually.
I mean, it is when you think about it too much, but yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, and like that's the thing. I suppose I would say, like they could very easily like be a spanner in the works of the party, and they might just do it for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And finally, there is the war cleric, who might be a nice idea for if you wanted to sort of amp up the rivalry. You might have a war cleric who like is really dogmatic and thinks that the conflict between Star Wolf and the party can only be resolved through battle and things like that, right? Someone who constantly pushes to increase the tension between the two.
Yeah.
Because I think that you're going to have influences, like, for example, if you have the very reasonable cleric, or maybe if the other party just have like a fighter or a bard who's very interested in smack talking the party but doesn't want to necessarily actually fight them. It's nice to have one or two party members, like a war cleric, who are instigators, who really want to push for that combat.
Yeah.
And I think I'd make it clear that, like, to them this is a ceremonial battle. Like, they don't want to just fight you in the street. They want to like make a show of it and like demonstrate for their god and for the people that like this is a test in battle. That would be a great way to push the party. Like, literally have someone saying, fight me, fight me, fight me, fight me. Rather than them just constantly making fun of the party. Someone actually saying, you and I should fight right now. And the party member or the party have to say no. Like, rather than, and they could say yes, and that's allowed. But like, if they don't want things to escalate, they have to be the peacemakers, which is,
So yeah, clerics, you can do a lot with clerics with that one. Let's go on. Druid. The nature.
So a druid is basically somebody who tries to ensure that the sort of natural order is preserved and defend it from those who would threaten it. So things like the overreach of civilization, or the machinations of celestial or outer creatures from the outer planes, or even like undead. And corruption and decay and all those different things. So they're pretty cool. But there are two kind of subclasses in the player's handbook. There's the Circle of the Land, which is just I pick a place and I like it there. So you just pick like a region, like for example, like forest, and you get more stuff when you're in the forest. But there's one called the Circle of the Moon. And the Circle of the Moon are actually pretty close to being rival/villain materials early on. They are basically like militant druids who master a special ability the druids have called Wild Shape, which allows them to transform into animals. And their sort of central thing is that they're much, much better at wild shaping into more dangerous animals. So rather than turning into like an owl or a snake, they turn into like a bear or a tiger, and they like fight off whoever is threatening their sort of part of the natural world. And obviously that sort of militancy, that sort of fanaticism is excellent material for a character who you want to try and kind of, demonstrate is sympathetic, right? Like, they're not a bad person. That remains to be seen, but like, they are not necessarily a selfish or evilly motivated person, or like they are not motivated by cruelty or avarice. They are motivated by something that a lot of people would say is important. Like, nature has a place in our world and needs to be protected. But they pursue it, and in doing that, they, turn on or turn against other parts of the world. It is not enough to defend nature. Civilization must be destroyed, right? That's the sort of idea that a Circle of the Moon druid could have. And it might be interesting to start off, give Starwolf, I got it right that time, I paused because I wasn't sure. Give Starwolf a Circle of the Moon druid, and in fact a Circle of the Moon druid would be great opposition to either a ranger, a paladin of the Way of the Ancients, or another druid in the party. Maybe not Circle of the Moon, especially if they're not Circle of the Moon. And just have them be, very very, they're driven, and like they're driven in a certain way, and they probably like find civilization or the trappings of civilization repulsive, right? And maybe depending on how the party interact with that group, the druid either kind of mellows out and becomes more like, okay, I understand that I might not agree with civilization, but it has its place. Or if the party are, act another way, then that druid goes the opposite direction, right? Basically goes feral, and maybe even leaves Starwolf and becomes a separate problem for the party to deal with. Like, maybe the druid from Starwolf runs off into the local woods and keeps attacking trade caravans, and when the party confronts Starwolf, they're like, we haven't seen her in weeks, we haven't seen them in weeks, we don't know where they are, what they're doing, like, they left the party. And like, maybe they even, when they say this, they reference something like, oh, she said before she left, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's a reference to something the party said earlier, try to bring it back to the idea that like, not don't make it their fault because it wasn't, but say like, the things you did change this influence, and, perhaps in another world, this could have been different. Because I think that's cool. I think that idea that like they live in a world where they act and the world reacts is a great feeling for the party. Even if it's a negative thing, I think they still go, oh wow, and they have that moment of like realizing how kind of important they are, and I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. And if you have them, if you have the druid going bad like that, in that case, then you can have that's when the rival party can almost help you out, where they can like say, oh well,
oh, that's so good.
Yeah, like
sorry,
we know
go on.
we know her better than anyone. We've traveled with her for so long that we can help you out with that. Like we can. We want to be the ones to try and stop her, try and talk her out, and if you're going to do that, then we're gonna have to join you. That kind of stuff.
That's so fucking cool. I love that idea that like, she's like I'm sorry, I keep gendering this druid. The druid has gone like rogue, right? And maybe because they've gone rogue, we'll go with the classic, you turn evil, you get more powerful, because that's just a great trope. And we say like this druid is now stronger than the rest of the party, and maybe even a threat because of the fact that they can commune with nature so effectively and like summon all these bestial allies, right? Like maybe they're even a threat to the party. So the party are like, well, maybe we can't take her. Maybe we need Starwolf. And then maybe they recruit Starwolf, but Starwolf say, we'll join you, but if we're doing this, we're taking her back alive, right? Like they have their own conditions. Like they won't let their friend be killed.
And then you have like a telltale ass moment where you have to decide of like, do I kill her or not kill her? And whoever, if I do kill her, then they're angry at me. If I don't, then other people.
If you don't, then the local lord and the villagers are upset with you because this druid has been killing travelers and stuff like that, and raiding farms and things like that. Like
moral dilemmas are pretty cool in D&D. Giving them to your
moral
players.
dilemmas can be very cool if they are if the players, especially if the players have had the opportunity to live through the consequences.
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel forced. If it feels like the natural conclusion to a set of events, and they just have this moment to act. I think that would be pretty. So that's pretty cool. That's the druid archetypes.
That's a way to do the druid. Fighter
is the perfect class, man.
Yeah, fight boy.
Anyone can be a fighter.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And you can make any rival with a fighter. Let's see. Fighters, they can use any weapon and any armor. You can kind of make him whatever fighting style you want. You know, you can make him a dex fighter where he has like a spear and like flips around the place, or you can have him like a big old axe boy where he just chops you up with an axe. But there's three. Actually, there's actually three different archetypes.
There's three.
There's the champion.
So the champion is great because the champion. So first of all, the idea behind the champion is just that like you are the best at fighting.
Yeah.
and how that's represented in game is just that like you're just really tough, you're really hard to keep down, you're really good with basically every weapon you pick up. A lot of the champion class is passive abilities, in other words abilities that are kind of always on, that you don't need to activate, like a spell or like rage or like a monk's abilities. It's just like a champion is always X. That's kind of their signature thing. So first of all, the champion is cool because it's really cool, just the idea that like this person is just really good at fighting. It's very iconic. Like I would always think of like in the Disney movie Hercules is like a champion fighter.
Yeah.
Because he's just a very strong, tough person who knows their way around a fight. Like they don't have any. I mean, obviously, you know, Hercules in particular has like super strength and stuff, but you know what I mean? Like in general, the idea that like they're just very capable. So the first thing that's cool about the champion when you're using them as a rival is that it's like the easiest class in the whole game.
It is, yeah. You have like three things maybe, and you're like, okay, this thing happens when this thing happens, and this thing happens when this thing happens, and that's it. That's all I get, and then they're all good, and that's it.
Yeah, it's basically like they're a little bit more likely to do crits, and then they get some bonuses to some physical ability checks, basically, and that's it. And it's just like that's literally it, and it's so good because it's so easy. So like my default instinct is almost always to say that like if the Star Wolf have a fighter, and if that fighter is not the face of the party, then they are a champion.
Yeah.
And the reason that's kind of good, first of all, is because, as I said before, super easy to build, very easy to run as a DM. They actually almost have like a monster stat block. They're so simple.
Yeah.
But additionally, no player ever picks the champion, because it's very straightforward, and a lot of players will look at that class and be like, oh, but I want to play like the Battlemaster because they have loads of cool combat superiority abilities, or I want to play the Eldritch Knight because they get spell casting. And so very few players will ever just be like, yeah, I just want to be the champion fighter, I just want to be like the biggest and strongest and bestest at hitting things.
Yeah.
So in that sense, they are very unique.
Yeah, very cool. Tim is playing a champion fighter in one of our games. He is Cadmos. He has a rapier, and it's actually pretty cool because he's playing like a dex champion, and that's kind of cool, like a dex kind of based guy who has a rapier and he kind of flips around the place and he does champion stuff. But it's just a simple character and he's really good, you know.
Cool.
But yeah, so champion's just an easy one to go with for like just DMs in general, because you know you don't have to keep track of anything.
You don't have to keep track of much. I think the other thing I'll say before we go on is it's reasonable to say that the fighter, because they are so archetypal, they are never really a strong rival. Does that make sense? There are some exceptions, I think, but I just mean like, I think especially the fighter and the champion fighter, they're never like the main rival of another party member. Am I making sense when I say that?
Yeah. Like,
I
get you.
Like,
yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is like they don't have enough thematic elements to conflict with another theme.
Yeah. I guess.
But these other two do. So the Battlemaster is. I just realized the first martial archetype is champion and the second one is Battlemaster. These are not alphabetical.
No, they're not.
I don't know why it took me that long to realize it, but there you go. Anyway, sorry. So the Battlemaster. The Battlemaster is effectively a fighter who tries to fight smarter, not harder. So they have a bunch of things to do with maneuvering their opponent. They have an ability called Know Your Enemy, which lets them like study their enemy and learn something about them. And that's basically it. They just get a bunch of like things like they can trip and disarm you, and they can make it so you only want to fight the enemy fighter. They can do a bunch of other stuff. They can do stuff like they can parry your attack, and they can do like They have that's basically all I can remember. Oh yeah, they have the commander strike where they can hit someone and then their ally gets hit them as well because they're kind of in charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if it wasn't clear by sort of what I was suggesting with them being kind of smart and even the ability literally called commander strike, battle masters make great party leads.
They make good party leads. They're actually like, if you do happen to have like a barbarian or a or even if someone actually plays a champion in your group, they are good. Like they are the good, like having like a smart fighter is cool because a lot of players would like to play fighters or barbarians who are just like, if you have like the dumb guy or like the dumb, you know, Grog the half-orc barbarian who just has who has an axe and he's like, I want to hit things with my axe.
Yeah, and Grog just wants to hit things, and God bless him, you know, Grog is allowed to do that. But this fighter, this battle master, I think, you know, won't necessarily outwardly say anything, but I think you try to make it obvious that he's very disdainful of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That he's very this fighter, sorry, I should not gender them. This fighter is sort of like, oh well, you know, why would I fight like that when I could just outmaneuver my opponents?
Yeah,
you know, things like that.
Like just, you know, whenever they get a chance to do those maneuvers, it just kind of shows, because your players are like, okay, I'm gonna hit him. Cool. Well, he does a parry. Like, oh wow, that's weird. Like, you know, like that kind of stuff. You know, like what? How can he do that? Like, I don't know, man. He just does. It's this thing he has. Like, it's just like showing that they have that. Just like, oh, he must be smarter, and I don't like that. You know, I just want to hit him with my axe. That's it. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good way of demonstrating their powers. But yeah, the Battlemaster is generally pretty straightforward. Battlemaster would be a fun thing to do if you wanted the enemy party to have elements of like leadership, I suppose, as in if they were in charge of a group larger than just an adventuring company.
Yeah.
So like as in if maybe there was a guild or you know, a company larger than just a group of 4 or 5 people, that like they might be the lieutenant or even the captain of the whole company and they're leading this small group at the moment.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah.
That could be cool. Other than that, as I said before, I think in general the fighter is sort of, you know, they're I think in this case they are themed very much to face off against basically anyone who fights without discipline, I think. So
Yeah.
even like another fighter who, you know, as you said, who's a champion or something like that, a barbarian, maybe some kinds of rangers as well might be an interesting example depending on like their kind of style.
I feel like the Eldritch Knight would kind of be similar to the Battlemaster. I feel.
I think the Eldritch Knight is a great example of an opposite to either a wizard or a sorcerer.
Right. Okay.
So I think they're the opposite to a wizard because they obviously don't have as much spellcasting, but they compensate for it by wearing armor and just being able to hit people with swords or, you know, axes or clubs or whatever. And I think they opposite the sorcerer because the sorcerer is about kind of raw talent, raw ability, whereas the Eldritch Knight is someone who has studied both a weapon and magic and has kind of not necessarily mastered both, but has had time to gain a grasp of both, you know?
Yeah.
Like the Eldritch Knight is so driven or disciplined that they have not only had time to learn how to fight with weapons and with armor and with shields and how to fight against different groups of people, and they know all this tactical stuff, but they also have had time to, you know, study magic and memorize it and, you know, use it in battle, which I think is sort of, you know, pretty cool. I do think they're also a great example of someone who could maybe, I don't know, oppose a regular fighter, like a non-magical fighter.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's almost like, yeah, it's actually almost like a stepping stone effect of like, you know, the Battlemaster kind of makes fun of the champion and then the Eldritch Knight makes fun of the Battlemaster.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to be smart, why don't you just use magic?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't need magic.
Yeah, it's like, sure, you can disarm people, but I can, like, you know, burn the weapon out of their hands or whatever.
Let's keep going here. Let's keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Next class is Monk.
Okay, Monk. Yeah, effectively a talented martial artist who has mastery of a unique force known as Ki, or life energy, which lets them do things like punch you like 7 times, or run really fast, or sometimes even cast magic. So I think the main monk. Okay, so sorry, there are 3 monk archetypes. We'll go over each of them quickly. There's the Way of the Open Hand, which is kind of the, I guess, the most sort of vanilla of the monks presented. It's effectively just someone who learns. If I recall correctly, is it karate actually just means open hand? I think that's correct. I think karate means open hand and kung fu just means skill. But anyway, so if I'm wrong, again, correct me in comments.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that one, so won't be able to back you up.
That's fine, but I think it is, and I think that's the implication, that this is sort of like, this is just you learning like karate or whatever.
Yeah.
So you're just learning like a martial art and learning how to fight people and use their strength against them and all that good stuff. But there isn't much here in terms of making a rival to someone else. I don't think that a monk of the open hand. Now they could be, depending on how you play them, they could be an opposite to a barbarian, because stillness versus rage is kind of a cool dichotomy.
Yeah.
That the barbarian's all strong and big, and then the monk uses like a judo thing and flips them over and knocks them on their butt.
Judo chop,
the most powerful technique in Duel Monsters. But yeah, so like, and again, this isn't me saying that they should always beat up the party. This is me saying that they literally have an ability called open hand technique that lets them hit someone and then knock them prone. So,
yeah,
use their abilities as part of their class. But the main thing, the main villainous archetype, I think, for the monk is definitely the Way of Shadow.
Yeah.
Which, if it isn't obvious by the fact that they are martial artists and it is called Way of Shadow, basically turns them into ninjas.
Ninjas.
They get abilities like Shadow Arts, Shadow Step, Cloak of Shadows,
League of Shadows,
Cloak of Shadows, Pants of Shadows, Hat of Shadows. Those are made up. I'm sorry, those aren't real. But yeah, so they get some cool things. They get the ability to cast a couple of kind of like stealthy style spells, like dark vision and silence and darkness, so they can basically disappear very easily. Like, they're kind of like smoke bombs and blah 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 and all that good ninja stuff. And they can teleport between sources of darkness, which is fun. So yeah, so that's I think it's reasonable to say that literally someone who is like a professional ninja or assassin or sort of sneaky, slightly mystic character is a great rival to like, actually I was gonna say paladin, but fuck that. Actually, a Way of Shadow monk would be a great opposite to a rogue.
Yeah, the rogue is very like not mystical, and he's just like a guy who can pick
the rogue is just Han Solo, who showed up and he just wants to make a bit of money, and they're like, look, you can do whatever you want, but like at the end of the day I want to get paid. And obviously that's not true. A rogue can also be like Robin Hood or something. But, like, I like the archetypal rogue to be sort of, someone who pickpockets to get by and like, spends the money foolishly and then needs more money and then, gets by with their wits and a knife and like, and quick feet more than anything else. Like, I think the rogue is the most. I think a rogue is a great example of a class who knows that discretion is the greater part of valor. Like, I think that they are the class that most strongly believes that. So I think that someone who's kind of a little more mysterious and has this kind of, sort of dark power is a great opposite to the rogue, because they are both naturally inclined towards the same style of things, but like one of them gets by. I mean, ideally, one of them gets by more just on their wits and like luck occasionally. I think the best rogues always have a little bit of luck in them.
Yeah.
But then this other one is just very well trained and has all these mystic powers that make it easier for them and stuff like that. And I think that's a really cool, opposite thing. I think you could do a really cool thing where I think you could do a really good example of this where the rogue and the Way of Shadow Starwolf monk have to maybe like race through a room undetected because it's full of like undead or something, and the rest of the party just have to wait and watch, and it's sort of a fun back and forth.
Yeah.
That could be a cool scene to sort of make them feel opposite.
Or just like, if you are like, maybe if you're playing like a thieving campaign of some sort and you're all rogues, having like this guy kind of just be better at thieving You know, just something simple as that. Like, just because like he just has powers and let him do that, and your guy's like, I don't like him. He uses all that magic stuff. I just sneak in there and then take all the stuff, man. Like, next one, Way of the Four Elements.
You know, cheese, ham, egg, and breakfast.
Cheese, ham, egg, and breakfast. I thought breakfast was... All right.
The four elements.
The four elements.
No, the four elements are earth, wind, and fire, and September.
Yeah.
Just kidding. The last one is water.
Yes.
I mean, we all wish it was a banger like September, but
yeah,
you know,
or Let's Groove, something like that.
Or Let's Groove, yeah, nice.
Yeah, well, this is, you know, just regular old Avatar-like guy.
Yeah, this is basically like if you ever watched The Last Airbender and thought, man, I heckin' want to be one of those guys.
Yeah, I want to be the last Airbender.
Because you literally just can do that. There's just a bunch of powers. It's just, yeah. Way of the Four Elements monks, they'd be a fun opposite to I think sorcerer is the obvious choice. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just pick the obvious choice.
Yeah, because to be honest, I can't really think of anything for this guy, really.
The only thing I was going to suggest is that they'd be kind of fun. They'd be fun at higher levels if the player's party don't have a lot of magic, or if the magic they have is very structured. So if, for example, you have a party and the only source of magic they have is, say, a wizard, or if you have a party who don't have any magic or only have, like, maybe, you know, a ranger or something, like someone who's kind of got a bit of magic but not a lot.
Yeah.
I think someone like a Way of the Four Elements monk is a cool example of somebody who has what appears to be quite a lot of magic, but is sort of also a very instinctive magic user, right? Like, doesn't have all this practice, or, well, they do. They are techniques, of course, but they can kind of use them in a very free-flowing way.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need the sort of structure of a spell book. They just sort of master these techniques and then perform acts.
And that almost might be kind of a cool opposition to like a wizard that you have, maybe.
Yeah.
A guy who's you know, who just studied the same, like an evocation wizard or something like that, who studied the same kind of stuff, but just does it completely differently. And whether as like your wizard's kind of like a skinny old guy who is a nerd and studies all day. Sorry, I'm very mean about that. Sorry about that. And your monk is like a guy who's physically, you know, superior and is like kind of, it has the same kind of results. Maybe not as powerful as a evocation wizard, but the same kind of results. But he's like, you know, physically healthier and better. You know, something like that. You know, would be cool.
I think a really fun thing to do would be actually, if the party has a monk, especially if they have a Way of the Four Elements monk, a Way of the Four Elements opposite monk could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So like and obviously, you know, there's no rule here that says, you have to pick a specific element. You can learn multiple different elements.
You should. You should pick
well,
one.
I mean, it would be much cooler, but I think what I would do is, because this is the benefit of making an NPC, you do that, right? You make it so that the Starwolf Way of the Four Elements monk only uses, you know, water or fire or earth, like, and I think you theme that based on the party that you're running for, but also base it on Starwolf and maybe like what they need. But I think that could be a lot of fun. And especially then, because if they do build a better relationship with this party than you were expecting, then one of the cool things you could have is that the monks share secrets, and then they learn techniques from each other.
Okay. Yeah.
And you give the player character monk another technique that they wouldn't necessarily. Maybe you give them one of the ones they wouldn't have normally taken, but they're kind of interested in. You know, or maybe you make one up for this. Maybe let's say you make an earth elemental monk. And the main thing you have them do is you have them make sort of like pillars of stone. And this is something the rivals have used to like get over gorges and, you know, create like walls and things like that. And like maybe you've made it up, you've based it on a spell, but you've made it up. And then you can have the monk teach it to the player. And now they have this unique technique that they only learned from that one rival they knew who knew it. And they have a cool, unique power that literally like only two people, as far as they know, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Paladin. So these guys are kind of, for people who don't know, kind of a cross between like a cleric and a fighter, kind of like the champions of gods of like whatever god, whatever divine deity is chooses them.
They are basically sort of crusaders for a god's cause.
Yeah.
You know, whereas a cleric is kind of a servant for a god who like tends to that god's flock. A paladin goes out and beats up the things that would threaten the flock, basically.
Exactly. Now, what I was thinking for this guy, remember what we were talking about with the druid, where they could maybe go off and turn bad and split from the party because because of maybe what your party has said and done, and kind of consequence of that. I feel like that could work really well with a paladin.
I totally agree, and I actually think that. And I'm gonna pull a fast one on us, and I'm gonna skip right to the last subclass of the paladin to support that.
Oh no! What is it?
The last subclass is the Oath of Vengeance.
Oh!
So what I think is rad here is that we don't start this paladin off as an Oath of Vengeance paladin. We start them off as just an Oath of Devotion paladin, like a default paladin, basically. So sorry, the three subclasses. The paladin is basically the Divine Crusader. The three subclasses, very quickly, are Oath of Devotion, which is like, you know, be a good person and uphold law and defend the common folk. And then there's Oath of the Ancients, which is respect the old ways and follow the traditions and blah blah blah. And it's sort of a little bit more naturalistic and druidic. It's kind of almost like a sort of a green paladin, I guess. Which is kind of cool. And then Oath of Vengeance is very different. Oath of Vengeance is all about avenging something. So the tenets of the Oath of Vengeance are fight the greater evil, no mercy for the wicked by any means necessary. And like that's just perfect. That's just absolutely perfect. The party get into a fight with Starwolf and they go too far, and the paladin swears a new oath. And that oath is to destroy the party.
And then you got like this angry paladin going after you, and I think that would be so much cooler. I think actually a lot cooler than what we were talking about with the druid, where you go to the rest of Starwolf and you say, "Listen, we're gonna take this guy down," and like, okay, then let us go with you and let us help you, but we're taking him back alive. We gotta talk him out of this kind of thing. You know, I feel like that's even stronger and like that's kind of more powerful, I think, than what we were talking about with the druid. Even though the druid part, the thing that we are talking about was really cool, but this is just, you know, nothing's cooler than like a paladin going bad. You know, it's so classic. It's just such an iconic idea for D&D, but it's really cool to me. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that you have to have it that the paladin betrays the rest of the party. I think you have the paladin. The paladin goes vengeant and leads the party against you.
Yeah,
and that's the escalation of your conflict.
Yeah. Okay.
That's cool. like to lead it back. This is a case of if you decided that killing the druid was the safer option, then the paladin in the party swears an oath against you, and now the paladin is a paladin of vengeance, and you are its target.
Right.
Like it's sort of like a great lead on from that. But yeah, so that'd be a lot of fun. And I think the other two, honestly, I don't think the other two subclasses, I don't think there's a lot of fuel there. I think we can kind of leave it. I think that whatever the party does, if you decide to escalate the conflict between Starwolf and the party, I think the first thing the paladin does is goes Oath of Vengeance.
Yeah.
I think they swap subclass to Oath of Vengeance, and I think you make that clear. I think you change them. You change the aura they have, or you change the outfit they wear to reflect that they have changed to hunt you, right?
Or definitely like a different maybe not definitely, sorry, but like a different symbol somehow might be cool. Like a different holy symbol would be
different holy symbol
very obvious.
Would be awesome. A different weapon would be another great choice.
Yeah.
Swap them from a sword to a maul or a great axe or something like that.
Yeah, like, you know, we were messing with saying about kind of making them look, I guess, a little bit edgier in terms of like with like an edgier weapon, like a maul, like a deadlier weapon. Maybe have like a longsword before, but giving them like a maul or a great axe, like a great weapon of some sort, just like a deadlier weapon, you know?
Yeah, like an executioner's axe or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah,
okay.
Let's keep going. Let's keep going with this.
Okay, Ranger. So the Ranger is someone who lives sort of as a middle person between civilization and wilderness. They live half in both worlds. Not like the kind of archetypal ranger is Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
They use a bow, but they can use a bow, but they can also use weapons like swords and shields and axes and hammers and so on and so forth. They're great in the wilderness. They're really good at tracking animals or people or anything. They know how to survive. They know how to keep themselves alive, and they have a little bit of magic, like the paladin. They have a little bit of magic, but that magic is very naturalistic. It's kind of attuned to the natural world and the animals within it, and it's limited in that sense.
There's two different subclasses of ranger in this book. There is the hunter and there is the beastmaster. So the hunter is kind of like
the hunter's kind of basic thing is that they pick something to be really good at fighting.
Yeah.
And then they're really good at fighting it.
And I feel like that's kind of might be a bit boring for a rival to your party. You might not use that kind of thing too much. But the Beastmaster would be very cool, because just having your rival ranger just hanging around with like a big bear or something, or like a tiger or something, some big beast of some sort just hanging around with them would be cool. A nice image for your party. But do you have any ideas for the hunter, actually?
For the hunter, I think that the main problem with the hunter that I can tell is that the options it provides here is the options it provides for the hunter is sort of like, it's a little specific. It's mostly to do with stuff like, I'm really good at fighting 100 goblins or like 7 giants or something in between.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily, they don't have any, how the hunters work effectively is that as you level up, you get a bunch of options, and each of the options is like, you're really good at fighting things that are bigger than you, or things that are smaller than you, or things that there are a lot of, or things that there aren't a lot of. So I think if I wanted to make a hunter in the, if I wanted to make a hunter in the rival party, I might figure out a way to make them relevant to what the party has. So I might say like, they're really good at hunting like wizards. If the party has a wizard, for example, like they're kind of they're like rogue witch hunters or something like that. Like that'd be a good word for like they're a witch hunter.
Yeah.
So they're like really good at dealing with like rogue spellcasters. So like that could be a fun way for them to oppose one of the magic users in the party, like one of the arcane magic users, like a sorcerer or a bard or a wizard. But other than that, I can't think of a lot to do with them because they are really kind of specific in how they work. Now they're pretty cool, in fairness. Like they have some cool abilities, and I don't want to undermine that. But I do think that like I think what I would say is like they're a really great example of like a player character or a player character class that is very much designed not to fight other player characters.
Yeah.
Which obviously most player characters are designed not to fight other player characters. But I think the hunter is an example of like a class that like really can't do that, or really I suppose shouldn't be doing that. Like should be hunting beasties.
Yeah.
So the Beastmaster is kind of I think a Beastmaster is a great example of what we might do instead. I think what you might try to emphasize is giving them an unusual companion that maybe reflects something of them, like maybe something like a huge lizard, like maybe even a dinosaur.
Yeah, something strange that that maybe a regular player couldn't get. Like I remember in 4th edition there was a background called the Fey Beastmaster, and one of the options was you can have an owlbear as your companion. And a friend of ours did that. A friend of ours, Kevin, made a character with an owlbear companion. And it was just very funny. And this is a funny image of having a Beastmaster with an owlbear, and that'll be a cool image for your rival. Like, how did you get an owlbear on your side? That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing I was going to suggest is like, again, if you want to make it clear that the rival adventuring party are like a little less morally upstanding than the party, I would try to make the monster something that is kind of evil.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, like I think something lizardy is good for that. Like something kind of like snake-like.
A shark
is a big shark with human legs.
This floats. Yeah, a big shark with legs. That's it.
And he keeps saying, "My knees itch."
and then your Beastmaster just itches his knees. Sorry. What did you say before I said shark?
I said something serpentine or reptilian, something like
cool.
a big snake or a big lizard or a big dinosaur.
Or yeah,
Something
honestly, a
that's like a
dinosaur
little
would be
mean.
heckin' cool.
I mean, a dinosaur is just. I mean, if you're like, oh, the rival adventuring party Beastmaster has a Triceratops, like, shit, I
Yeah,
give up.
or
That's
just
so
like,
fucking cool.
or just like two velociraptors hanging out with them or something.
You see, the cool thing is that if you said, for example, it was like a Triceratops, which is obviously kind of unusually sized, the other benefit is that that rival party now have a clear travel mechanism.
Yeah,
Like that's how they get around. They all ride in the Triceratops because it's really big.
that's a cool idea. That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
you're very welcome.
I'm gonna take that.
I'm gonna take it.
I was thinking of moving on ahead with that. Any last
I
things
think
to
I
say?
think that's it. Yeah, I think the main thing. I'm trying to think of like cool aberrations you can give them, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that are like dumb. I guess dumb enough that you would have them as beasts.
Yeah.
It's mostly just a question of like, what's something you can give them that's a little, I don't know, like a little unusual, a little spooky.
Like a wyvern, maybe.
Wyvern's not a bad idea. I was thinking actually you could do like an insect, like a giant spider.
Yeah, that'd be cool too. That's
That'd
really
be
cool.
a great example of kind of a slightly evil.
Don't be afraid to go different with it anyway if you're going to make him a rival, because give him something that a player might not have. Like obviously, don't say dragon. Have it something as you said, Dan, a bit dumb. Like a bit like an animal.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. An example from Creature Club that might be relevant is a basilisk.
Ooh yeah, and listen
could
to
be
our
cool.
Bastos episode for that. There we go, a bit of cross.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
Cross pollination there.
Exactly.
Let's keep going then. So next class is the rogue. We touched upon this guy a bit. He is the Han Solo of the group. He is taking cash, doing pickpocketing, sneaks, backstabby kind of guys.
Yeah, rogues they prefer to fight sneakily. They like using a light armor and smaller weapons. They tend to rely more on kind of cleverness and subterfuge than they do on brute force or direct confrontations. They're really cool. The rogue. The thing is, a rogue on its own is fine for a slightly more evil adventuring party, for a rival party, because rogues are inherently sort of tricksy and ill-meaning.
Yeah, and they would actually, if you didn't want to have, when we were talking about the bard, be kind of like the face and the Gary Oak of the group that kind of tells you off, a rogue's a good idea for that as well. He's another good kind of face leader guy. So
Yes. So there are three archetypes. The first one is the thief, who's just very good at stealing things. I think it's reasonable to say that a thief is not a very interesting
for a DM,
rival.
Yeah.
I think that like I don't think I can think of much. I suppose in fairness, a thief is a great rival if you have a very lawful party, obviously, right? Because by its very nature, you don't steal things that belong to you. You can't. Like you're always breaking the law if you are stealing something. Because if you're not, it's called looting, and that's fine. Everybody does that. So I think it's reasonable to say that like a thief is a great example of a party member for a group who have a lot of like lawful characters who believe in the structures they fight for and who would defend them. I think a thief is a great opposite to that. But I don't think that the thief class, well, it doesn't matter that the thief class doesn't have a lot going on. It's really more about how they feel as an NPC and how they feel for the party. So I think that from the point of view of that, a thief, someone who is very interested in, who's always kind of checking people's coin purses and things like that, I think that's kind of a fun rival. And I think there's a lot of room there for inherent rivalry where the thief like steals something the party wants or even steals from the party.
Oh yeah. And you having to like almost out thief the thief and even maybe go into his house and take the stuff from him, like just that might be a bit of fun. Assassin, you can kind of almost do something similar that with like or something similar than the Way of the Shadow guy with that, but he's a little bit less mystical. He's just kind of a hired killer kind of guy.
Yeah. The assassin is just a person who's very, very good at ending the lives of other people.
Yep.
Especially people who aren't seeing it coming, and especially people who are, asleep or whatever.
It's a very good, very good one to have if you want to have your party go steer closer to the morally wrong side.
Yep, absolutely. Assassins are interesting. They can do a lot of cool stuff. a couple of cool things. I think if you're using an assassin NPC in your rival party, I think I would say, um, first of all, they don't call themselves an assassin. That's bloody obvious. But second of all, I think what could be cool is if the assassin in the rival party works for somebody. Maybe the party know about it, but maybe they don't. And maybe the assassin has actually been hired to kill one of the rival party members.
Okay.
That could be interesting. If you had like, the rival party members have a couple of different whatever they have in them, but the assassin is actually there to assassinate the druid because they are a threat to an organization, or the paladin because they've been hired by an evil cult, or maybe even they are working for a traditionally like good aligned church and they have a job to end the life of somebody, like even just someone like a paladin or a cleric of another god, because they might become too powerful and destabilize the proper order of things.
Yeah. And even actually, that might be cool as well, where sending him after the party already kind of know him, after they're already rivals, and I'm just like, yeah, I have been sent to kill you because, they gave me a lot of money, and also I know how to kill you. I know you guys. It's like, oh, really? You, of all people? All right, then. Fight me, Kind of having, like, already knowing him, but he's like, he has to kill you now,
Yep, very true. And finally, there is the Arcane Trickster.
This is a good opposition for just a regular rogue, like a thief kind of rogue. I think kind of like a magical,
or the Eldritch Knight.
Yeah.
Or the well, it can be an opposite to a lot of things. I think it's fair to say. The Arcane Trickster is, their thing is effectively that they are a rogue, but like the Eldritch Knight, they get a little bit of spell casting. So they're able to do they're a little more flexible as a result, because they have access to all these extra spells. They also have some cool stuff where they have the ability to like use Mage Hand and like pick locks with their Mage Hand at range and stuff like that, which is very cool. The Arcane Trickster is very, very interesting. I like them a lot. I just love the name, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good name. Kind of tells you everything you need to know about him just by the name.
Yeah, I think the Arcane Trickster would be a great opposition to, I don't know. Like, I honestly think, like, so many people, like Wizard, Eldritch Knight, normal rogue,
fighters,
probably fighters, probably wizard, maybe even probably not sorcerers, but I mean a lot of different classes.
Paladins, clerics.
I mean, rogues are just great opposites because they are sort of the very different. As a party member.
Make sure no matter who your rival party is and whoever your party is, just make sure there's a rogue in there. At least one.
I think especially if the party you are running for doesn't have a rogue, that's a great sort of piece of opposition.
Let's keep going.
Sorcerer's basic idea is that they are someone who can control magic, but unlike the wizard who studies it, or the warlock who makes a deal, or the cleric who follows a god, sorcerers just have magic in their blood. Basically, they are descended from some power, or some twist of fate has meant that they have access to this incredible ability. So they can't necessarily define it or understand it as well as a wizard can. They don't necessarily have that same deep, like almost like scientific knowledge, but they do have an innate understanding of magic.
And there was two of these guys, two of these like kind of bloodlines in the player's handbook. There is the Draconic bloodline and there's the Wild Magic bloodline.
So I think of the two of these, the Draconic bloodline is a little more what we need, right?
Yeah.
I think now, in fairness, Wild Magic has some interesting opportunities, because Wild Magic has a table called the Wild Magic Surge table, which is a D100 table you roll on, based on certain conditions in your class. But some of the Wild Magic abilities can be very beneficial, so there might be some interesting stuff you could do there. But the main thing to me is that obviously, if you have a sorcerer with a Draconic bloodline, as you may or may not know, listener, there are two kinds of dragons in Dungeons and Dragons. There are chromatic and metallic. Chromatic are colored dragons, metallic are metal themed dragons. So a gold dragon is metallic, a black dragon is chromatic. And the chromatic dragons are all evil. So immediately, if someone has an evil dragon's blood in them, then it doesn't necessarily make them evil, but it could.
Yeah. Good.
I think that, like, to me, what immediately strikes me is how, like, if you are a sorcerer, you are basically someone who just grew up with magic and just has this power and can just use it to do incredible things. So you have this incredible position of privilege. And if we then say that, like, well, you're not just getting your power from anywhere, you're getting it from, like, like an avaricious blue dragon who's very interested in gold and treasure.
Yeah.
Maybe you have those same instincts in you. And maybe the fact that you've never really had to work for your power means that you have certain, privileges. You have a certain privileged notion about yourself.
And that's they're cool oppositions then to any arcane like mage that you have, like that's a wizard or a bard, anyone who has to like study magic to know it. They're good opposition because they're just like naturally talented and they have it already. But like your guys have been studying these spells for their entire life, and they're like, but ours is better. Our knowledge of it is better. But they're just more like, well, I have the magic, So go for that. Go for that angle of it. If not, then they might be good opposition to a fighter, just kind of being like a magic opposing martial kind of thing, or even like a monk. Once again, they can kind of be used for a bunch of things. Wild magic, maybe not too much on that one. That's kind of more of a player kind of thing for now. So I might just move on, to be honest with you.
That's fine. Next up is the Warlock. The Warlock is a magic user who who doesn't necessarily have any power on their own. Instead, they make a deal with someone. They effectively have what's called a patron, which is a powerful entity that grants them power. So the patrons provided in this book are there are 3, I believe. There is the Archfey. So that's that's sort of a powerful entity of the Fey realms. So like kind of where the elves come from, and like a lot of like naturalistic magic. It's sort of like, it might be where druids draw their power depending on your setting. So an Archfey is like some powerful kind of almost like elven inspired creature. There's actually some titles here that I really like. The Prince of Frost, the Queen of Air and Darkness, Titiana of the Summer Court, the Green Lord, the Prince of Fools, and ancient hags, which is interesting.
Yeah,
hags, as in sort of like fey evil witches, which we will eventually cover in Creature Club. So don't worry, we'll get there. To me, the Archfey always feels like they almost always feel like they might not necessarily be good, but they're probably the furthest from evil. So I kind of want to say maybe we skip over the Archfey for now.
But I feel like all these Warlock guys are kind of tending to go towards a bit more of the evil side,
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack McCormack, who I don't think listens to this podcast, but who is a good friend of ours and who played a lot of D&D, he summed up the Warlock to me incredibly well once, and it's always something that's stuck with me. And he says, every Warlock's arc is the same, because every Warlock makes a deal with their patron, thinking that they can outsmart them, and the end of every Warlock's arc is them not outsmarting them.
Yeah.
So every Warlock makes a deal with the devil because they think they can talk their way out of it, and they never do. And that's always stuck with me about how Warlocks work. So I kind of get what you mean. Like, Warlocks always feel like they're already a little bit tainted, right? They've already made the sort of deals you're not supposed to make, that you were always taught to know better than, and you haven't done that. And the question becomes like, what made you think you were smarter than an archdemon?
Yeah, that's kind of part of the reason why Warlocks are probably my least favorite class in the entire game. Just like mechanically they're cool, but just roleplay wise, I don't really know how to do them right.
We've talked about this. I think off the podcast before, about how the Warlock's inherent problem is they feel like they have all the trappings of an interesting class, but what happens is your player goes, I'm a warlock of the Great Old One. And you go, okay, what does that mean? And they go, I don't know. And they look at you.
Yeah.
And now they expect you to do all this work to make them relevant. And
Yeah.
you're like, seriously? You couldn't just play like a fucking wizard or whatever and just have all your magic shit, but you don't have to
or
do all
just
this goddamn...
sorcerer. You know, you have
Yeah,
you
or
just
just-
have the power. You're born with it. There you go. But I like the story though that you told of the same Jack who you just mentioned. When you're playing a game with him,
Oh, yes, yeah.
he just went like, oh, you reached like a part where you didn't know where to go. We're just like, oh, well, ask my patron. I'll go, like, you know, the guy who I got my power from.
Yeah.
And then he
We'll
was just
go there.
Yeah, and then you just went there, and he was just this big snake that existed in this world, and then like,
Yeah. It was basically like this massive, like kind of mansion or like keep out in the middle of a like dense rainforest. And he was the patron in question was this powerful like naga, which is basically a big snake,
Yeah.
powerful, clever snake thing, magical snake thing. And the implication was just that it was powerful and old enough that it was able to give people fractions of its power. And we literally just went to it to be like, what the heck should we do? Which was pretty cool.
yeah, that is like the coolest warlock story I've ever heard in my life, and I've just always I keep that in my head whenever I'm thinking of warlocks. You know.
That was all, but for the record, that thing about the Warlock's arc and Jack playing that Warlock was all the same time. He came up with that arc as he was coming up with his Warlock character.
Yeah.
So there you go. He's a very insightful person. But yeah, so the Archfey is kind of just a powerful Fey creature. I think they're kind of I think it's fair to say that all the Warlocks are a little tainted because they are beholden to a creature who often is more interested in power than they are in anything else. So, like, you know, a cleric might have some sort of specific, you know, motivation based on the rules and tenets of their religion, whereas a patron, a lot of the time, might be more interested in power through something. And it's oftentimes the case that the servant of the patron, the warlock, doesn't necessarily understand what exactly they are doing
Yeah.
for their master. So I think that it's very easy to take any of these warlocks and make them into enemies of the party because their patron basically made them or instructed them to do something against the party's interests.
Yeah.
And how specific or how exactly oblique or specific and direct that is kind of up to you. A kind of a cool way you could do it, and I think we'll get to this. So the next patron, which I think is kind of a great example of one for your evil or rival for your Starwolf, is the Fiend, which is you have made a pact with basically some sort of powerful evil entity, so like a demon or a devil or maybe one of the evil gods like Grumsh or Magliobet or something. There's a lot of examples. There's even like the famous Demogorgon or Orcus, Lord of the Undead, are great examples. So this is literally like this class option is literally you have made a Faustian pact. You've literally made a deal with the devil. Like there are so many reasons that you know you shouldn't have done this, and yet you've done it.
Yeah.
So I think if I wanted to make an interesting kind of warlock who did that, I think I'd really play up that they are maybe like sort of arrogant and slightly stupid, and they don't understand exactly what they've gotten themselves into, but they've got all this power now and they love to show it off. They probably have a lot of flashy magic, that sort of thing. I think I'd emphasize that. And I think that because they literally work for a fiend, I think that it's so easy for them to be driven against the party, especially if the party have a paladin or a cleric or like even just a nice fighter.
Yeah.
Because that fiend might decide that these foolish mortals are they are too powerful alive, or when they are alive they give hope to people, and the archfiend doesn't want that, so it instructs its servant to do something, basically to end their lives or disrupt their plans or blah blah blah. Okay. But yeah, so that's very obviously evil. I think that's pretty straightforward. The last otherworldly patron is the Great Old One, which is Cthulhu.
Yep.
You work for Cthulhu. You made a deal with Cthulhu, and now you work for Cthulhu, and that's basically it. You work from someone from the far realm, the space beyond reality. You work for Cthulhu. You are
That's pretty cool.
the big. I mean, it could be if your players ever came up with it, but they never do, and they expect you to do it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to stop harping on that, by the way, because it's like my least favorite thing.
Oh yeah, no, it's exactly why I don't like warlocks either.
Like that's the thing, right? Like, because if someone's like, "Well, I'm a paladin," you're like, "Cool. What oath do you have? What kind of god do you want to serve?" And then you work it out together. Whereas they go, "I'm a warlock, great old one, please," and you're like, oh, "Jesus, all right, fine."
And that's the thing about like, you don't say like, "Oh, I am of the great old one." Like, no, you say like, "Make up a great old one." Like, "Oh, I am." If you want to say, "Oh, Cthulhu," like, cool, Cthulhu, whatever. Like, just.
I mean, fucking yeah, just literally steal Cthulhu. That's fine. Like, H.P. Lovecraft isn't going to kick in your door and be like, "Stop it."
Yeah. But just like come up with a name your guy, have him like exist, and then have him different instead of just come with saying like, "I am of the fiend."
Yeah.
But let's keep going. Let's move on. We have a lot to go through.
The only thing I'll say in terms of the Great Old One is, they literally have an ability called Create Thrall, which is basically that you make someone serve you permanently. They are basically permanently charmed by you, and they just serve you mindlessly forever, which is super fucking evil.
Yeah,
for the
sounds
record.
pretty evil to me.
The fact that this is even in the player's handbook, it tells you exactly that the warlock shouldn't be a player class.
Yeah.
But basically, this is a great example of something where if you have a rival party member with this, they could use Create Thrall. If things have escalated and Star Wolf have become more of a I don't know, what's an evil party, DC? What's an actual example of like an evil opposing party?
A dark paladin.
No, as okay, so, as in a name. So they're not Star Wolf anymore. They're I don't know. They're the Fox unit, I guess.
Yeah. Star Wolf were evil. That's the thing.
Star Wolf were not evil.
They were on the bad side.
They were on the bad side, but they were more like interested in opposing Fox than they were like in the last mission of Star Fox Assault. They help you beat up the last boss.
But they were working for Andros in Star Fox 64. They're working for the bad guy. Okay, yeah, sure. But yes, like, let's say they become...
kind of evil, I guess. Anyway, my point is that they could use Create Thrall on one of the old party members.
Yeah, ooh.
If they beat the party in a fight and the party are forced to flee and they leave someone behind, then the warlock could turn one of them into its thrall.
That's good.
Which is spoopy.
So, the wizard.
The wizard.
Do you guys know what a wizard is? Good.
There are some who call me...
Tim.
Who's not here.
Oh, man.
So the wizards... So the wizard is someone who studies a lot of magic to learn how to use it, knows probably the most about magic, and loves knowledge, and loves secrets, and loves learning, and loves power. So the wizard's abilities, or the wizard's kind of changeable thing, is their arcane tradition, where they pick a school of magic, and that's what they focus on. So there's like 8 schools of magic, so I think we're going to just kind of...
Let's name them off real quick.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So, School of Abjuration is kind of the school of protection and banishment and counterspelling and stopping other things. To abjure literally means to stop. School of Conjuration is making stuff, obviously, conjuring up items. School of Divination is sort of using like scrying the future or scrying distant places. School of Enchantment is both kind of, a little bit like buffing people, but a lot of the time it's also, beguiling people. Like Charm Person is a great example of a kind of classic enchantment spell. School of Evocation is Fireball.
Fireball, the class.
Yeah. School of Illusion is, exactly what it sounds like. School of Necromancy. This is obviously going to be our evil one. That's to do with raising the dead, and it literally has an ability called Grim Harvest. So that tells you what you need to know. School of Transmutation is transforming one thing into another thing. So like turning rock into water. Okay, so I think we can probably reasonably say, as far as I'm concerned, the most evil wizard classes, aside from Evocation, which is obviously just blowing people up, which is fine. I don't know. The party do that. It's it's not immoral. I think the 2 worst are enchantment and necromancy.
Yeah.
So enchantment, because it tricks people. Like I think there's spells that are called like alter memory and stuff like that. Like that's pretty evil, or it can be. Yep, there it is. There's an ability called alter memories that the School of Enchantment Wizard has access to. So like you can kind of hypnotize people, you can bend them to your will, which is all kind of, can be very evil. I think that any subtle wizard who uses like enchantment or illusion would be a great opposite to a paladin or a school of evocation wizard or a sorcerer, because a lot of the time they lack that more subtle grasp of magic. They're a bit more like, fireball, fireball.
Yeah. The School of Divination is actually my favorite wizard class for an NPC, actually.
And why is that?
Because I feel like you have a lot of really good support kind of spells that for like knowledge, really, where you can kind of do the thing where with the lore bard and stuff, where let's say the party needs to know something, then they go to the School of Divination and maybe he has a spell to kind of find out. He's just the best at doing that. And I just like, you can kind of do a lot of cool stuff role playing wise with a divination mage, because no one ever wants to play divination mage. So just and like it's a cool NPC to have, I think. So it might be a cool one to have for.
And again, like the knowledge cleric or the lore bard, that means that they have some reason for how they always get to places faster, or they know secrets that the party don't.
Yeah, exactly. But let's get to the meat of what we came here. The necromancer.
Okay, so the necromancer can make undead, basically.
Yeah. It's a really good like rival to just a regular old wizard, I guess, because or even like a paladin or a cleric, because
because necromancy is heckin' evil.
Yeah, it's pretty evil. It depends depends on how you play it, but most of the time they're pretty damn evil. It's a good way of showing like, yes, this person has gone a completely different path than your players. You can actually almost have it where you can do the idea with like the evil paladin or the jury we're talking about, where this person goes off and actually starts to learn more about necromancy, and then kind of splits himself from the party. That's another example of that situation.
Becomes a proper necromancer.
Yeah, and that's cool. And then once again you get your party like, I'm sorry, third time this has happened, but yes, we'll help you fight we'll help you fight one of our own guys.
You guys, I mean, you got to figure out a new recruiting system, because you are, I mean, this is terrible. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do there. I think a good example of that might be that, like, maybe the party are hired by a temple to go after, a book of necromancy, and then, like the Codex Corpulus or something like that.
Yeah.
And then while they're traveling there, they run into the rival party because the necromancer wants that book for themselves. And maybe they don't reveal that straight away. Maybe they kind of travel with the party for a bit, or maybe they do, and maybe that brings you into direct conflict.
Yeah.
And you have to like race through dungeon against this other group. That could be kind of cool.
And you can have it like kind of like the necromancer can be like, here, give me that book, I will pay you top dollar for that. And then, or you can either give it to him or give it to the person you're supposed to give it back to, or whatever, or keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then if you give it to him, then that kind of might lead to something bad happening in the future,
Yeah. I think you could do something fun where you maybe like, you give, you filled this dungeon with undead because it has like an undead book in it, and then the necromancer has a lot of power there, so they kind of have this disadvantage as a result or something.
And they have an ability called Undead Thralls, and that's just evil, man.
Yeah,
that's just more thralls.
It's basically they learn, they get animate dead, and when they animate dead, their animate dead get a bonus is the main thing.
Yeah,
they have better animated dead. We've covered all these kind of generally. Okay, God, we've been recording for a long time.
Very long time. So yes, what are we gonna do?
I was gonna say, do we want to go over an example rival party and how we might play them out?
Yeah. So let's go through our favorite ones that we want to put into like every party, no matter what. I feel like a rogue needs to be in there. Somewhere. Either a arcane trickster might be a bit of fun. An assassin if you want to go more on the evil side. The face bard who is just a better bard than your bard is a really cool idea, which is one of my favorite ideas. I think.
I think it's a lot of fun. I think again, when we say better bard, I think we mean more famous bard.
Exactly. Yeah, and just like actually he actually wrote a song.
The actual,
that people know.
the actual business of barding, they
Yeah.
are better at that. Like, they might not be a better fighter, but like that's not a bard's job. That's the fighter's job. It's in their name. Yeah. Okay. So we have your face is a kind of arrogant bard who is like a competent music maker and has whatever normal bardic magic and stuff, but mostly they are just quite famous and well renowned because they have effectively leveraged their abilities to make themselves famous, and they're party famous as a result.
Yeah.
They're the face. Then we have, I guess, okay, let's assume that it's a party of 4 because 4 is a good opposite number. Let's give them a we're going to say a rogue. Let's go ahead and say sort of like, dial back a little bit because we've already got a magic user. Let's just say a thief.
Okay. Yeah.
Who probably doesn't call themselves a thief. Might call themselves an entrepreneur. That's a fun word for it.
Yeah, that's good. That's a fun class.
A wealth distributor. Someone with an enlightened self-interest.
Yeah.
And they can be kind of, maybe a little more reserved, but nevertheless sassy. I think they'd spend the most time away from the party when Starwolf were first encountered, because they'd go off and do a lot of information gathering in the cities or the towns. I'd try to make it so that this rogue is definitely a member of whatever thieves guilds you've got in your setting.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether or not the party rogue is, I think it's good to have them on the inside of the institution, because there's either conflict there where the rogue in the party isn't and the Starwolf rogue is, and now they know about an unregistered thief, or they're both in the guild and now they're trying to both better themselves and get themselves a higher rank in the guild. So now they've got like a little bit of a competitive spirit there.
Yeah.
To their thieving.
And have them like be the bard's brother or something, It feels like they're just very similar kind of people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, give them like a familial relationship. That's cool. Okay, and then let's see. We've got a bard for kind of inspiring. We've got kind of a flanky rogue. Let's give them someone big and fighty. I think who you choose as your big fighty person depends on the party. I think if the party have a paladin, you pick a bard. You pick a barbarian. If the party have a barbarian, you pick a paladin. If the party have both, you pick an eldritch knight.
Yeah. I feel like how we're making these guys now, it seems to be kind of very an urban party, a very
yeah, that's a fair point.
Some sort of brawly champion fighter, I'd say, maybe for this specific party that we're making right now.
Okay, yeah.
But I do like the idea of going with with a certain kind of fighter, a certain kind of fighting boy for whoever you guys are. But for this guy, let's say champion fighter for this party right now.
Okay, yeah. So, actually, that's a good point. What we're kind of making at the moment is we're kind of making like your city dwelling, opposite rival party who go out on an adventure, but who have a stake in whatever settlement they're in, and as a result, maybe they know it well, and that's why the bard is famous. That's why the thief knows his way around the streets, their way around the streets. And then your fighter, is kind of sort of maybe a bouncer almost, right? Like kind of a rough and tumble sort.
Yeah.
So maybe they are a barbarian who prefers to go unarmed, or maybe they're just a fighter who has just a club or whatever, but like prefers to use their fists.
Yeah, you decide.
Both of those are pretty cool. And then I think we've kind of established a few things about this party. They're an urban party. We know that the bard and the rogue are brothers, and they have a fighter who is, I think the fighter knows the group as a result of actually being a bouncer at an inn that the bard played in, and then they became friends, and now they travel together. And let's see who's a nice kind of round out. Who's a good final piece of this puzzle?
Maybe like some sort of tricksy wizard of some sort.
A tricksy wizard is good. If we wanted to go tricksy, we could also go a trickery domain cleric.
That'll be cool. You don't see that a lot,
but
so
you don't. That's a good point. You don't see that a lot. That could be cool. Alternatively, DC, we could use what you said before and add a divination wizard.
Yeah.
Because a divination wizard because at the moment we've got a lot of sly, underhanded elements to the party. So maybe a divination wizard is kind of the straight lace of the group, right? Like this wizard isn't as interested in stealing from the lords and ladies of this town. Maybe they have their eyes on the future.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting. I think maybe this wizard, had a portent that told them about this party, and that's why they joined. Or maybe they know the party through some other way.
Yeah, but also kind of it just makes a divination wizard just kind of makes sense with this party. It just feels like it's a nice party now. Like
yeah, it's got a little bit of everything.
You can actually see these being an adventuring party, kinda. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, I think you could. Yeah,
I think you can, like a sort of a, at the front and center of the group is this kind of, fey, thin, kind of bardic figure who always has this annoying grin on their face, and then like to their direct side is this big, broad, burly fighter, and maybe kind of slightly in the shadow of the fighter is the bard's brother, the rogue, and then off to one side, maybe just reading over tomes or like gazing into an orb, is the divination wizard.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. There's our favorites that we came up with for this one anyway, of a rival party for you. But anyways, like, make whatever rival party you want. Make sure you go with what your players are. Even having like, if your players already have rivals in their head, kind of just building off them, will be cool as well. Like,
exactly. Yeah,
literally just having an exact opposite to your players is cool. It's kind of silly just having like every single one of these people are an opposite to your players. Like, but it can work, I guess, if you kind of doing a little bit more lighthearted
it
adventure.
Absolutely could. Yeah, it really depends on the adventure and what the party are like. But I think that a rival adventuring party can be a lot of fun, and I think you can provide a really interesting insight into the world. It maybe lets the players know they're not alone, right? Like, they're not the only ones doing this. I think one thing I'd like to try and make clear, if I had a rival adventuring party in my game, is I would try to make it clear that the rival adventuring party are pursuing their own adventures.
Yeah.
So I think that I would bring the two parties into conflict when for example, the lord of the town has an open contract because a group of owlbears from a circus have gotten loose, and they just need to be hunted down and stopped before they cause too much trouble. Or something has been happening. Some creature has been raiding to the north or south, or attacking villages. Like a wyvern has been pulling away whole cows at night, or a griffin or whatever. And again, the Lord doesn't care who does it; they just care that it is done.
Yeah.
But I think then, in between stuff like that, you have it. You try to make it clear, either through information that the rival party pursue in line of sight of that Starwolf pursue in line of sight of the actual party, that like they are actually going after their own leads, right? Like, they're hunting down, I don't know. I think they should be hunting down something that the party aren't. So if the party are facing against some evil force, demons or something, then the rival party are just looking for the pieces of a magic item, or they are pursuing their heritage, right? Like the bouncer fighter is actually the last of a long line of warrior knights, and they want to find the tomb so that they can get all the cool money and the big magic sword.
Yeah. I do like the idea of this party being, closer friends than your actual player characters together,
I mean, that's pretty funny. That's definitely like the implication that they are sort of like that they work really well together, and they're very professional and just very efficient at what they do, in comparison to the party's inherent, because it is actually just like four of your friends, inherent incompetence.
Yeah.
Is extremely funny.
So rival parties are very cool to have. Definitely make sure you have moments where you have to work with the rivals. If you are kind of not having them as proper evil guys, if you're kind of having them more on the kind of a gray area, or even like on the side of good, but they do things different than you and you just don't like them, having moments where you have to work together with them is cool.
Yeah, and in that context, if you want to make it like that you're on the same side but they do things differently, I would say make you part of the same organization. So like an adventuring guild, a guild of adventurers or whatever, or like a company of monster hunters, you're both teams within that company.
Yeah.
But you just, you don't like that team or whatever. Like, and that's a great way. That's a great way to make it clear. Oh, they're your rivals, right? They're not your enemies. They're your rivals. And like,
Yeah.
you might not get along with them, but at the end of the day, they do have your back. They will actually help you out if you really need it. But you might think they're assholes, and that's allowed, but they'll still help you out.
Or if you're doing like a big, like a vast adventure where you're going through like a landscape and you happen to go into like this stronghold, and then they also happen to walk through this stronghold, and you meet together and you're in this place and it's about to be attacked by whatever, like by giants, by trolls, by goblins, by orcs, whatever. And it's about to be siege, and you have to help this town like survive the night of being sieged. Then they're also in there with you. It's like, oh, cool.
Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh man, there you go. Just do that. Then you have to work together with your rivals. Like, okay, we both want to make sure we all get through this. So let's just do this together. Like,
I mean, that'd be really cool if parties ever retreated.
Yeah.
on that subject, if you really want to make that especially cool, if the party are retreating somewhere because they're being chased by an enemy force and they want to find somewhere to hole up, then not only do they run into the rival adventuring party, the rival adventuring party are running from something else.
Yeah.
So like, you were running from goblins, we were running from orcs.
Yeah.
Something like that, where there's a moment of like, oh great, now we've got even more problems. That'd be a lot of fun.
Anyway, thanks so much for joining us for this long, different podcast. Jesus.
This
is a very experimental one. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you
I hope it was useful.
If you listened to it all, then thanks for listening. It was a bit of a strange one, but I liked it. I thought it was cool. It was very insightful. Make rival parties, guys. Go for it. It's super cool. It's super fun. And make them to do with your parties. But anyway, this has been Creature Club, this is being a Creature Club production. This has been Villain Squad. Let's make a rival party, or Villain Squad 2. Let's make a rival party. That's what the title is. So
I was thinking it would just be Villain Squad 2 rival parties.
Villain Squad 2 rival parties. Well, who whatever name is there is whoever won this argument. So
I don't want to argue about it.
It's not an argument. We'll probably call it that. It's a lot easier. But yeah, guys, thanks a million for listening. If you guys enjoyed this, please, and you haven't already, please consider subscribing to us on iTunes or just our RSS feed or SS feed. We have a website, creatureclubpodcast.com. You can listen to the episodes. You can comment on them. Leave us any comment you want, as long as it's kind of not dickish. They have a contact us page on it where you can send us in questions. You can send us in little whatever. We actually would like you to send in, if you could, homebrew monsters, classes, magic items, spells, whatever you want, or even your character ideas or just stories, whatever you want. Throw us in stuff first. We might make you might make an episode if we like it a lot.
Yeah, and if we get enough submissions, we'd love to do an episode all about homebrews. If you have it in a PDF form or anything like that, we also have a Gmail, which is just creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. I have literally just this week added that Gmail to my phone, so I'm able to check it all the time.
Excellent, yeah. So you can send loads of emails, and Dan will get so many pings when he's at work.
I literally will. That's all true. You can harass me at work. It's a gift just for you. This is the first episode we've recorded since we have officially reached 100 subscribers, which is really cool and really exciting. And obviously, in this age of internets, it maybe doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's important to us. It certainly feels like a lot to me.
Yeah, it's a big number for us because we thought we were just gonna have our friends listening to this, and then
basically, yeah, exactly. Like, the idea that anyone else would listen to this is kind of strange to me.
We don't know how many of you 100 people who subscribe actually listen to us, but if you do, thanks so much for listening, and we have plenty more where that came from.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep giving you more podcasts, so keep listening, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, and for everyone who's listened, thanks for listening, and also for those of you who have shared it, thank you very much, because obviously it's a little it's always strange to recommend something to someone, and especially when it's a couple of jabronis,
Yeah, it's a couple of weird Irish guys just talking about.
and they just swear like probably way too much.
Yeah,
like,
we cuss.
we are heckin' cussers, yeah. And like, so if you have shared it with anyone, I do appreciate that, because it can be maybe a little uncomfortable to do that, but it is really nice to know that people like this and they listen to it and they have a good time and it gives them ideas and they go out and play a wicked good game of D&D.
And that's what we just do this for. We just do this, like, give you guys ideas for your D&D game, and we want to keep doing that for you guys. So, we're just doing it to like improve your D&D game, and most importantly, improve our D&D game, because
exactly.
like that's kind of why we did this in the first place.
I think that wraps it up. Yeah,
wraps up. Tune in next time for whatever we're doing, because this is once again no Tim time. So
I can't believe we haven't called that before. That's really good.
no Tim time. We're still very sad that he's not here. Please send us messages saying we miss you, Tim, because the more messages you get, the
faster he comes back, the faster his wings flap.
Exactly. Yeah, he's like flapping across the Atlantic Ocean right now.
And if you have any suggestions for what you'd like us to do, because it's kind of the wild, wild west, comment or email or whatever you're more comfortable with. Because like seriously,
yeah,
we just do whatever. Without Tim here, we just do whatever we want.
Yeah, and we read pretty much everything that you guys send us. So
yes,
say hey. Anyway, that's been it for this week. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I have been Mikey.
And I've been Dan.
Stay cool.